Greetings, may it please the court. My name is Kerri Edwards, and I, along with my co-counsel Jill Canning, are going to represent the petitioner Peterson W. Kirtland. During my time before the court, I'm going to talk about how the First Amendment does not provide absolute protection against outrageous but non-defamatory speech on matters of public concern targeted at a private figure. My co-counsel Jill Canning is going to talk about the captive audience doctrine manner on this case, and I'm going to focus on the fact that Kirtland is a private individual. The matters that the church is protesting are matters of private concern or private conflict, and that the Supreme Court of Flamingo erred when evaluating this case. First, the Supreme Court of Flamingo failed to take into consideration that Peterson Kirtland is a private individual. In Gertz v. Welch, they stated that private individuals are not only more vulnerable to injury than public officials/figures, they are also more deserving of recovery.
Do you believe these signs were targeted specifically at Kirtland, or were they targeted to extend a cultural debate about these topics?
I believe they were targeted at Kirtland because they were there at his son's funeral. They had to fly in. They were along the one and only road that led to the church and walking along with his cars, holding the signs for him to see. Also, some of the signs involved Kirtland, like when they said, thank God for dead soldiers. He's going to his son's funeral, who is a dead soldier. Also, it said...
Wait, you think the statement, thank God for dead soldiers, is directed at Kirtland?
Yes.
It seems to me that that's just a general statement. It's not a statement directed at anyone. It's just a statement. Why do you think that that's like...
Because his son falls under that category of dead soldiers.
Okay, well, what's the message you think that they're trying to say in Thank God for Dead Soldiers?
I'm not quite sure, but if you allow me to go into my argument, hopefully I can answer that.
That's not how you would answer it. You can't say that. So, can you ask the question again, Keenan?
So, what are they trying to say? What do you think they're trying to say when they say Thank God for Dead Soldiers?
I believe that they're trying to portray their belief that they don't necessarily agree with the Army's message, and that when a soldier dies, they're happy that they die.
So is that not a public concern about the U.S. military and the lives of our veterans and current members?
Some could argue that, but it also can be a private belief that the church holds.
Can you say that again, sorry?
Some could argue that, but it can also be a private belief that the church holds.
But the belief is on a matter of public concern.
It's on a matter of arguably public concerns.
Why do you think it's not a matter of public concern? We understand that the church may privately believe it is, but why are they not privately believing that it is on a matter of public concern?
Can you restate your question?
Yeah, I said that wrong. So they may privately believe that the military is doing bad things, but that doesn't change the fact that they're still talking about a matter of public concern.
Because in Wellbum versus Fairchild, it was held that a defendant cannot create a matter of public concern simply by protesting about it. And just because that the church is protesting about these matters does not necessarily make them public concern.
But is the military not already a matter of public concern, regardless of whether or not a small radical group protests about them?
The military is a public concern, but the military, they're not necessarily involved in this funeral. This funeral for Kirtland's dead son, Roger, who is in the military.
Continue.
Kirtland's dead son, who is in the military, but this was a private event.
I have a question. So if the U.S. military, the troops, are not a matter of public concern, then it strikes me hard to believe that anything would be a matter of public concern.
No, I'm not saying that there aren't a matter of public concern. I'm just saying at this moment and time, at this particular event, it was not a matter of public concern. This was a private event focused on burying Roger Kirtland.
Well, it may have been a private event, but again, it was still on a matter of public concern. Whether or not it's a private event doesn't change the fact whether or not it's a
The military itself is a public concern, but them protesting about it does not necessarily make it a public
So I just want to clarify from you. So talking about the military is a matter of public concern.
It is.
Okay. You can proceed.
Also according to, okay. Also, the Supreme Court of Flamingo, they referenced the New York Times decision, and I believe, and the Kirtland, Supreme Court of Flamingo, they referenced the New York Times standard, which prevents a public official from recovering damages for defamatory falsehood relating to his official conduct unless he proves that the statement was made with actual malice, that is with knowledge that it was false, or with reckless disregard of whether it was false or not. And Kirtland,
Does this case depend on if Kirtland is a private or public citizen?
Yes, because when you're a private citizen, you're protected more underneath the First Amendment, and you're protected more, and you have more rights.
And what makes him not a public citizen?
Because before this event, he was not in the public eye. He's not a celebrity. He's not a person who speaks on public manners. He isn't in the political scene, the social scene. He is a normal citizen who goes about his day.
Does putting his son's funeral into the newspaper, a media source, turn him into a public figure?
No, because it does not make him a public figure, because
There's case law that's saying that someone can knowingly be forced into being a public figure.
yes, there is, and I have it.
So that's what you would reference to that question, that kind of question.
In Gertz v. Welsh, it says that an individual should not be deemed a public personality for all aspects of their life. And also in it was Hustler v. Falwell, I believe. It was Hustler v. Falwell that you cannot voluntarily be injected into the public eye. Involuntarily injected into the public eye.
But didn't he voluntarily inject himself into the public eye when he published in the newspaper?
No, he didn't necessarily put out the funeral notice. He put out an obituary. An obituary was put out stating that his son died, and that there would be a funeral.
Getting past the public-private figure issue, I'd like to get in a little bit more into the speech. Can you explain why this speech is in violation of the First Amendment?
Yes, because it's the state interest of protecting and preventing emotional harm outweighs the weight of the possibly protected speech under the First Amendment. And in Hustler versus Falwell, it says that false statements of fact are particularly valueless because they interfere with the truth-seeking function of the marketplace of ideas, and they can cause damage to an individual's reputation that cannot...
Can you explain why anything that Calvert asserted or preached was false or provably false?
Can you repeat it?
You quoted, I guess, Hustler v. Falwell saying that false statements of fact have particularly little value, etc. Can you explain why this is applicable to whatever Calvert said?
Because the signs.
The time is up. Please briefly respond to what he said, and then that'll be it.
Because the signs are provably false, and it's more interest in the state. It's more interest to the state that a private figure doesn't go through emotional harm than what the defendant is.
Thank you, Contra.
Yeah.
All right.
One